yeah, it'd be irresponsible of me to leave that all for the listeners.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
just
That's
blow somebody's eardrums out right in the first like 3 minutes of our second podcast episode.
Just a wild. Hi everybody. Hi guys. How are you? This is the political science fiction podcast, so PoliSciFiPod podcast, where we do do stuff about real life politics, using fictional politics as a lens to examine real life stuff. That's vaguely what our show is. This week we're doing a little bit of one of our I think was going to be one of our side shows, like themed episodes, and of where we pick a very rich man in fictional work, and we ask, should the government take all his money away? Is basically the thesis statement here. The title, which you'll see of the title, which is Scrouge McDuck a good billionaire? This is a silly topic, but yeah, this is going to be one of the silly shows. So,
which, by the way, my name's Cody, and I'm also here.
Yeah,
and Kyle's not just like sitting in his room by himself ranting about Scrooge McDuck being too rich. He somehow roped me into this concept here. Also, I was gonna say I think Forbes actually does a list where they break down the richest characters in fiction, and I do believe Scrooge McDuck was, I think, third or fourth. Smaug is apparently also really rich in the Lord of the Rings universe, and then like Carlisle from Twilight, apparently.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I haven't watched those shows. But it seems like, who would have guessed the people with giant fill vast buildings with gold coins would seem very rich. It just seems like who would have guessed? Yeah, the dragon Smaug, honestly, like that's more of a cavern situation he's filling up, whereas Scrooge constructs bins.
Oh wow! Okay,
which are just big office buildings. Yeah.
Sorry, I guess I can't really make a comment about this being a tie into our other podcast, but apparently the Tooth Fairy is supposed to be like a fictional net worth is sitting at $3.9 billion.
Wait.
Yeah.
How's this?
I have no clue. Like Tooth Empire, I guess. Like,
is this the particular Tooth Fairy from A Piece of Medium, or?
I'm just assuming it's like the Tooth Fairy altogether and like the whole like Tooth Fairy mythos. Harping back to our last episode, Jabba the Hutt is apparently worth $8.4 billion, which is
fully believe that.
Kind of up there. Bruce Wayne is sitting at 9.2.
Future topic of this show.
Lex Luthor is 10.1. Tony Stark, $12.4 billion. Just trying to figure out. Yeah, Carlisle Collins from the Twilight series is number 6 on the list, and has a reported net worth of $46 million or $1 billion. Santa Claus is number 5, with $51 billion.
Again, that's okay. Yeah, he has a lot of assets, but like he doesn't have. I don't imagine Santa Claus having wealth.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. It's one of those things where you gotta actually understand how people calculate net worth to be able to like understand what like. Okay, so number 4 on this list, because this kind of low-key relates into what we're going to eventually talk about, Flint Heart Glomgold from DuckTales, Scrooge McDuck's biggest competitor, has a net worth of $52 billion. Smog the Dragon is at third with $54 billion. And Scrooge McDuck is number 2 on this list with $65.4 billion. And then the number 1 is T'Challa, the Black Panther, who's apparently the only trillionaire in this list.
Well, yeah, he owns a... Yeah, I guess. I mean, he's... Yeah, the last... In that context, I guess future episode of this show based upon T'Challa the Black Panther. But, like, I don't know if that counts, because he's, like, the last absolute monarch in the world, in, like, that universe. Like, what? Like, maybe Doom? But even then, like, Doctor Doom's not, like... I don't know. If Doctor Doom dies, I don't know that Latveria stays a monarchy. Also, I don't know that, like, is Latveria a monarchy? Or Latveria just a dictatorship? I'm not sure. I'd have to look up whether or not Doctor Doom's a king or not, because he could just be dictator. Anyway, yeah, where was I? Oh yeah, so yeah, title of the episode is Scrooge McDuck a billionaire. Premise of the episode: should the government take away all of Scrooge McDuck's money, or at least tax him to the point where he doesn't have a massive bin full of money, I guess. So yeah, where I got the idea for this is there was basically a Thought Slime video, and in that Mildred from Thought Slime did like a video about like Bill Gates a good billionaire, and like talked about all that. And I thought, hey, let's take that silly video and make a even sillier video about whether or not this fictional character deserves to keep his fictional wealth, and by that extent, do other fictional billionaires deserve to keep their wealth? Which, yeah, I don't know. There's going to be because I think this is going to be an interesting topic in the long run. I think there's going to be some different answers. The rules of the show, I think, we're not assuming a total abolition of capitalism. I think at that point, we're like doing a whole different thing. Yeah, at that point, we're doing a whole different thing. This is just about whether or not we should tax this guy to oblivion, or like whether or not he would disprove any theories about taxing billionaires into oblivion.
Yeah, but who's to say that in the fictional universe of DuckTales that Scrooge McDuck isn't actually already paying his fair share of taxes?
Yeah, that's the scary part, honestly.
Like, what would happen if there's already like a system of power in place that's already like absolving Scrooge McDuck of any form of like guilt or?
Yeah, I don't.
I
we're
don't
going to talk about a little bit about this, because but go ahead.
One of the reasons why that I'm not going to say signed on to the episode. I just kind of low-key signed on to the series. But, like, one of the reasons why, like, when you're like, oh, we should talk about Scrooge McDuck, one of the things that I've recently learned is Scrooge McDuck's money bin is frequently being whatchamacallit, at least in the comic book lore. Scrooge McDuck sits around and he's talking to Huey and Dewey, and he says, never sit on wealth. I don't sit on wealth. All the money that I use in my money bin is money that is frequently being changed daily. So Scrooge McDuck makes that amount of money per day to fill his money bin, and then he goes and swims in it, which is even more disgusting to think that there's a bigger money bin somewhere else that or that money's constantly changing hands enough.
Yeah, there's a few different implications. There are some implications that there are multiple money bins. I've seen that. Depends on where you read. But yeah, so like, and there's also stuff about there being like main bins. And obviously he also owns like other property. But like, I don't know that I believe this is all money being actively spent. That just seems.
I really don't believe that there's any corporation where somebody isn't actively sitting on copious amounts of wealth, but also it boils down to one of those bullshit net worth questions where you actually have to sit there and calculate basically, well, how does this guy have so much net worth? A billionaire could have it in his portfolio. The billionaire could have it in real estate. The billionaire can have it in assets. It's all about how we view it, and it's also like Elon Musk saying that. Oh wait, what was the quote that he recently, or a couple of years back, published? That was stating that if he if the person he was tweeting at could tell him how to solve world hunger, then he would pull the money out of Tesla right now and contribute it to the funding of whatever this guy's proposition was. Of course, nobody ever ended up backing him on that, or whatever happened didn't happen, because clearly world hunger hasn't been solved at this point in time. So
yeah, I don't really want to make this fully about Elon Musk, but Elon Musk is absolutely someone I kind of wanted to bring up as almost like a little bit of a counterpoint, because a lot of Elon Musk's money, it seems like, is very dependent on like his ownership of various stocks and companies he is largely involved in. Like, I think when he like, his wealth is very, I think, perhaps very much tied with like the value of like Tesla and his other companies, because like a lot of things like people get mad about, or like, I don't know if you get mad about it per se, but it's someone that's been pointed out about Elon Musk is that he kind of manipulates his own stock by being like his own hype man, which is one of those things that, like, again, we can't really go into it all here, but some people do, like, okay, is he kind of doing like stock manipulation? Because he's always sort of saying stuff to like hype up his stocks and like drive up the bunch of people that do it. Also, he has like a big fan base of people who like will never sell his stuff, and that's really advantageous. And there's stuff like that, of various sort of legalities.
Sorry,
and the counterpoint onto that, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, just a second thought that I had the other day, which is directly related to Elon Musk. The fact that Neuralink recently came out and did its like first human test subjects, and apparently everything went through. I like to think that like Elon Musk as a person isn't akin to like programming in like an Order 66 into Neuralink that says if his stock price ever drops below like 55%, that he will mind control people to go out and buy Tesla stocks to keep them driving up. So be warned of potentially buying Tesla stocks in the future.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, the reason I'm sort of bringing him up as like a comparison here is because like a lot of people will like be like, okay, Elon's money is largely in his stock values. Like his the stock he owns is like, and some people will say overvalued, but it's very valuable. So like his money's not necessarily liquid at any given time. I'm like not his accountant, obviously, so who's to say how what's the term? Like true that is? Like how much liquid asset being like like having physical money.
Mm-hmm.
Though who knows? I mean, with Elon Musk, like is Bitcoin a liquid asset? I think a lot of people would say no. But I mean, Elon Musk might consider that a liquid asset, but yeah.
Which is actually kind of brings us to our like bigger points of here. Like Scrooge McDuck always seems to have cash in hand.
Yeah, he is. He in the 80s cartoon, he literally, like, the words are said on screen that I like to keep all my cash liquid, which is actually probably really inefficient. probably.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, because like a lot of that, like with Elon Musk, a lot of his money comes from him having these valuable stock prices, and to an extent, like Scrooge obviously has that, but like Scrooge clearly like values his liquid assets very heavily,
Yeah.
which isn't necessarily the best for growing his money. But I'm not his accountant.
Some would argue that like a digital portfolio for Scrooge McDuck would probably benefit him so much better, but also
Oh,
like
sure, yeah,
I think there's something a little bit more comical about him just like pulling out $100 bills and like literally throwing money at every single problem that he potentially encounters. Um, which brings me to my next portion of like what I'm trying to discuss here. Is there any specific point that you're actually pulling from here at this point in time, considering like the newest iteration of DuckTales is really what I'm basing a lot of my premises off of. Considering I wasn't going to go sit down and watch like 6 seasons of the old DuckTales and then come in and watch the 3 new seasons of DuckTales. And then on top of that, like hunt down comics in like the 3 days that I had for warning on this. So, really, I didn't even watch much of any of the new DuckTales stuff like that.
yeah. So I've watched all of the like the 80s, like I've watched all of both of the TV shows. Although I've probably slept through like 30 to 35% of the 80s one.
Yeah, it's completely
But
understandable.
yeah, it's not as good as a show. But I haven't read any of the comics. I read some Wikipedia articles on them because it was kind of fun. And because I had like questions and I was like the odd time and yeah.
How well is like the deep dive of the lore like spaced out?
Reasonable. Because I mean,
Like
like the first appearance of Scrooge McDuck is in 1947.
Oh, geez.
And he's had in like the Duck series line of Disney comics is like very popular actually. Like
Okay.
like almost stealthily, but it's got the numbers to back it up. Like they sell quite well.
Yeah, fair enough.
Or have historically. Maybe I don't know those. I doubt those numbers are very good now, but they have historically been quite good.
Well, when we take a look at it, this is the second or third series that they've done in terms of like the Duck universe. Because there's Darkwing Duck, there's Donald Duck and the Three Amigos. There's
there's a bunch of Duck shows. I think like I won't get into the continuity. I only vaguely understand it. I think my understanding is that the 80s DuckTales is like a big like universe. I think like Darkwing Duck and I think Quack Pack are vaguely canonical with those, though I'm not sure. And then yeah. So we're making the case about like whether or not Scrooge McDuck should keep his money. So let's introduce Scrooge McDuck. The defendant, Scrooge McDuck. Scrooge McDuck is a depending on the series, an immortal duck billionaire who has like assets in a wide variety of businesses. He is often referred to like he is in the 80s DuckTales, he is canonically like an oil baron, as well as owning like a bunch of different company like factories and stuff. He's also a landlord and such. Though he's primarily more famous for his occasional treasure hunts, from which he gathers valuable treasures from across the world and brings them into his money bin for added addition to his personal wealth. Now, those are the methods to which he gets money. He also canonically started his fortune in the gold rush, depending on, I think he was in both the California and the Klondike gold rushes. The new series shows him being in like the California gold rushes, and the 80s one showed him being in the Klondike gold rushes. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so that results in him getting the big, massive pit, which he fills with actual gold coins and other money. So yeah, he's I guess, yeah, so he's obviously hoarding a good bit of wealth. I guess we should bring up whether or not he's a like let's go on the capitalist way of this and ask, is Scrooge McDuck a big job creator? I guess seems like he owns a lot of stuff. He could actually be, given when he was an oil baron, he might have been actually. It's surprising he wasn't broken up by the trust busting years of like Teddy Roosevelt. But yeah. So there's some problems here. Yeah, without like trying to disprove the entire idea of job creators, it seems like on its face like that is a fair assessment. And he is he does seemingly invest in new companies fairly regularly. So there is that. Yeah, he does have a wide portfolio. But let's see, like I think I want to bring up a couple of things. He does have a couple points against him. I think first of all, him being he is a landlord, and in the 80s show he was a pretty rough one. In fact, one of the premises of one of the there's an episode where one of the premise is that he loses access to his money, and because of his own policies, he gets evicted from his house because he missed a payment. So that, yeah, that's sort of a him being hoisted by his own petard thing. So yeah, it was his policy, at least for the years and years he was in activity. Like he was kicking people out for missing one payment, clearly. So that's a pretty good mark against him. Maybe illegal, depending on where you are. Yeah, he also, we also got to point out that, as an oil baron, he's probably contributing to climate change, so there is that. He does occasionally oppose other billionaires and their evil schemes, because there are several more evil billionaires in the DuckTales universe, obvious analogs like John D. Rockerduck, who is a parallel for John D. Rockefeller, who's a big, that's what the trust busters were for, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. Although, and Rockefeller did notoriously get 20 people, including like a dozen children, killed one time because they were striking against him. So, yeah, not being on his side is probably a good thing. His other opponents include Mark Beeks, who's, I guess, a Musk Zuckerberg idea thing. He so yeah, that's whatever. Scrooge doesn't seem like he's really on the online space, which is super weird. The modern series is a lot more vague about what his actual businesses are. I know he has a lemonade company in it, and also a film production company that's mostly small films though. But yeah, in the 80s they were a lot more detailed because he was he was definitely an oil baron. And yeah, he owned a lot of different factories and stuff.
Gross.
Yeah. No. His other opponent historically is Flintheart Glomgold, which depending on the continuity is just like a jealous rival to Scrooge, or I think in the comics he's straight up he's in charge of a literal blood emerald mine in Africa. Probably. So that's a thing. So Scrooge isn't a blood diamond miner, I guess, probably. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's because Flintheart Glomgold was South African, like clearly probably a white South African guy in the comics, and in the 80s they made him another Scotsman, probably to like because when they were launched the 80s DuckTales, that's probably when the blood Steinman stuff would have been starting to get into the American consciousness, so they probably just wanted to squeeze away from that if they could. So that's just my theory, though. So yeah, those are them. So yeah, normally this is going to be like a different, more like interesting segment because he's not when we get to like an episode on Batman, we're going to be like, oh yeah, he fights the Joker, who is an obvious public menace, but like in this one, it's just like he has business rivals who occasionally have business competitions with him, and yeah, maybe that's a deal. It just seems like it's a pretty low stakes, honestly. He does have a couple super villains he fights, I guess. Magica Dispel, who admittedly that's an evil sorceress he's preventing from like taking over the world. I don't know, someone else could probably do that if we got rid of Scrooge McDuck's resources to do so. There's these are more the new ones. I don't remember how many of the super villains. I don't think there was too many super villains in the 80s one. But he also had he would also change and fight in the new one. There's the guy in charge of the moon evil emperor, who he prevents a lunar invasion. So yeah, the McDuck family single-handedly prevents that. Mind you, they got their rocket technology from like Scrooge's own rocket experiments, so yeah, that's a thing, I guess. And he wasn't actually very effective at stopping them at first, but yeah, that's also unclear. I don't know. Maybe someone else would have dealt with the stuff, but yeah, that's a weird arc. That yeah, it's also a show. So like in real life, you'd have like the army fighting the Moon Men too, and they're not quite as threatening as like I think the War of the World's Martians. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you don't actually see the army in any part of that story arc, which is yeah, whatever. And then there's Fowl, whose basically entire operation was to stop Scrooge McDuck from being like a big reckless adventurer, which that probably wouldn't exist as much without him. Although the guy in charge of Fowl was trying to take over the world, but he was also being thwarted by actual spies. And yeah, I don't know how that would have turned out without him. But yeah, I don't know if he's like is like the question here are we answering is Scrooge McDuck a necessary obstacle to these threats? And I don't know, what do you think? Can someone else take care of this stuff?
I mean, is anybody else taking care of this stuff?
Yeah, no, not. Yeah, you don't really have. Yeah, you don't have like this isn't like as simple as like the in like we do the Batman episode and we're like, okay, well, Superman will handle it. Obviously, that's not a thing. Like no one moves in on this stuff.
Well, I mean, the only people that canonically in this universe are weirdly hired by Scrooge McDuck, regardless. Like, if we're talking specifically people like crime stopping, like the only people that are really out there crime stopping are like Gizmo Duck, who's currently employed by Scrooge McDuck. And then I don't know how Darkwing Duck, you could argue that Darkwing Duck, or the person that was playing the Darkwing Duck storyline is so fucking confusing.
The 80s Darkwing Duck, yeah, maybe just like 80s Darkwing Duck steps up and defeats the lunar invasion. Like that's maybe a thing that happens. Yeah. Yeah, in the 2017 show, it's a lot more confusing. Because I guess in that one, Scrooge is a lot more directly responsible for the creation of Darkwing Duck, because that storyline, it's really convoluted. We're not going to get into it, but I don't know, maybe, who's to say?
I mean, once again, the only thing I'm going off of is what they're giving me at this point in time, and it's not a whole bunch. So it really seems that Scrooge McDuck a lot of the times has been diversifying like a lot of his like global power within the realm, or within the settings at this point in time, and he's no longer just like an oil baron. He's got his hands in like aviation, and by that I mean he built a rocket and his daughter went to the moon, which ultimately led to a lunar invasion. So that's his own fault. Another point of like episode was when his brother he sent off into the middle of the ocean to do like bio research, and then that became a problem. So a lot of the problems in the world are directly like Scrooge McDuck related.
And obviously the counterpoint would be like the 80s show where like the canonical like the American military exists. Like they can probably deal with some of that stuff. Yeah, maybe that's just maybe just we have Sergeant Donald Duck step up to the plate and like do some duty for his country. I don't know.
I guess when you also to like take a wider look into the universe, then it gets way weirder. Like I'm just going off of what the show is feeding me. I'm not like the extended universe would be real fuckity, because like why doesn't Mickey Mouse just come help with his like magic brooms and shit or whatever? Where's Pete in all of this? Like,
I guess the other thing we got to bring up is his treasure hunting, which Scrooge McDuck is popular for going to foreign locations and stealing treasures from long lost temples, which I'm pretty sure that's just stealing. Really?
yeah.
Like, am I wrong? Like, is he not just pulling a big British museum, except no one gets to see other stuff? Like, at least when stuff gets stolen to the British Museum, you can go to the British museums. This is all going into private collectors' hands, which is like a famous, like, private collections of antiquities are like a famous like void in which like human knowledge goes in and never comes out.
Yeah, but I'm also not going to sit there and like pat the British Museum on the back for not putting it into like private collectors' hands. Like they're still a private collector. So I don't know.
Like this, like the point here is that, okay, if the British Museum is evil, then doesn't that, and Scrooge McDuck is doing something worse than the British Museum, doesn't that make him worse?
I mean, arguably he's not like auctioning it off. So like if we're going like a weird hierarchical scale of like what is classified as worse, like he's the middleman.
I'm not even worried about like him auctioning it off. I'm worried about it, like, and like he is a private collector. Like private collectors are like really like I like as a like historian, like I find them really like reprehensible in a lot of cases, because like they keep stuff where no one else can study it, and that's some of the oldest things like to exist in known to mankind have been like taken by a private collector and never to be seen again, because this guy wants it for his fancy collection. And no one knows who he is because it was an anonymous bid. So no one's going to know about like this ancient Mesopotamian artifact that could tell us God knows what. It's like him taking them at all makes him kind of a really bad guy.
It depends on how you define, like, if he's gatekeeping, I don't know, like the Library of Alexandria's contents because it could ultimately destroy humanity or society as we know it, does that like make him awful, or does that make him like a good person?
Well, I mean, for
Or
every
do
one
you
of
think
those,
like
there's got
that?
to be like 20 things that are just like, oh, here's a fancy gold Mayan thing that I'm just keeping lying around.
Like, I'm not going to sit here and go through every piece of like Scrooge McDuck's like copious amounts of collections and stuff like that and be like, well, there needs to be a reason why he took this, but like ultimately I don't really, yeah, care for people going into like other countries and just like stealing stuff. So like I'm kind of
I mean,
pro
granted, we never
neither.
like, yeah, like the caveat I will give to this is that like in the occasions where he goes to go for these artifacts and finds like people taking care of them, like he will not steal from like a village. He'll steal from like a temple that doesn't have anyone in it, at least on screen, but he won't like steal from like someone's village. Like he's not like that kind of thief, which the British Museum absolutely has those kinds of thieves.
Which like brings me to my next point. Like, I think I watched the more tame version of DuckTales. Like, I would really hate to see like the straight up unhinged lunacy, like anti-socialist shit that was going on in like the early 1947s, or like the anti-communist like propaganda that the like Disney potentially was in like the early 1950s and 60s. So
Yeah, I don't know that there's too much of that in any of the shows.
okay.
The government is never really made to be Scrooge's enemies in any of these. Thankfully. Or like people trying to like Scrooge, not without a doubt. Like anytime there's like a charitable cause on screen and they're like, "Hey Scrooge, can you give us money to feed orphans?" And he's like, "Okay, I realize like this like the name of this, I forget what the example, like the on-screen example was, just like there was like a Dimes for Orphans charity, and he was like, I wonder if I can squeeze them down to a Nickels for Orphans charity. And yeah, he does stuff like that. He's obviously like anti like charity. Like that, I think that's plainly seen on screen throughout any era of this. I'd say like DuckTales 2017 like isn't nearly as bad as the 80s one, and the Ford in the comics, I think those are more like joke things than anything. Like I think those are just one-off bits, and like a lot of the time like the show is critiquing Scrooge McDuck, but I mean we're also critiquing Scrooge McDuck in more of like a not a ha way, and we're gonna take all his money away and give it to other people way. So yeah. But yeah, he is openly contemptuous of charity throughout the entire show. So that's another thing. Yeah, he's maybe like, I don't know. My verdict's kind of like he's not as bad as a lot of real life billionaires, which is fair because if you made a cartoon about most real life billionaires, you would like instantly never like them. Like they'd almost certainly
Yeah.
be way more anti-communist or whatever. But
I think the bottom line, what really ultimately it boils down to, is we're never going to see the dark side of Scrooge McDuck's like multi-millionaire, because it's a kid show. Like,
it's very much a
um,
comedy through all the series. It's aha. Isn't it funny how Scrooge doesn't want to give money to charity? Yeah,
I'm like,
and if he ever crosses a line, they're very much going to be like, okay, he's not going to do that. Like he's not going to like actively steal from this isolated village versus full of people, because that would be wrong. Which yeah, in most real life, there's no cartoon where like people are judging him. There's no three little boys standing right next to Elon Musk who are gonna try to teach him a lesson about I don't know, killing monkeys with brain chips or whatever the fuck he does.
That got dark real fast.
Don't be anti-Semitic. Don't be anti-Semitic, Great Uncle Musk.
Jeez. Yeah, and like, I mean, arguably there's lots of real world like villains that we could, like, billionaire villains that we can take a look at and hold up underneath a microscope and like criticize all how their work is hurting everything at this point in time, from the people working under them to the people that are just like in the general vicinity of where they're working from. Any number of examples, from Bill Murray to the CEO who was recently like train companies, who was like pushing efficiency and
say no more.
causing like train derailments.
You can just say train exec. You can just say American train executive, and like,
you could have just said anything
yeah,
executive at this point in time. For like in a capitalist society, for somebody to hoard as much wealth as Scrooge McDuck does in this universe, there's got to be a lot of suffering on the other end, unless somehow he's miraculously just like completely and entirely fail-proof, or, which, I mean, it's the Disney universe, so yes, absolutely, there's going to be absolutely zero ramifications. What was the other comic I was reading the other day that was criticizing like Batman, which is kind of funny? Like, if we do other universes, like, other people are probably going to hold people under bigger microscopes than Disney did, ultimately, I think.
Yeah.
I think there was a post that was talking about how criminals' life insurance policies keep on going up in Gotham, like, suspiciously. Because Batman keeps on beating him up, and that's how he makes majority of his money, is by increasing the premiums on like random civilians.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll get to him.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Bruce Wayne is next, but he's up there. His day will come.
But I would argue that I also like I like the foil of Goldheart, whatever his name was.
Glinthart Glomgold.
How he's that. How he's just the foil of Scrooge McDuck, who's like just like a Machiavellian villain that's like out to get Scrooge McDuck, and that's his whole like, and I think that's generally good writing on the the people of DuckTales, for having somebody who's like just the complete opposite of Scrooge McDuck, who like, we don't like Scrooge McDuck, but he's the lesser of two evils in this universe, between like corporations where like all of Glim's like money is being funneled into like scheming on ways to steal like Scrooge McDuck's fortune. So
and like Glinthart's obviously like Glinthart is a bloodthirsty killer. There's no doubting that. Even if they play it for laughs, he has absolutely been like on several occasions like, oh yeah, no, I'll fucking kill this guy. Don't worry about that. And it's just that Scrooge is too wily to get like caught by him.
But just like, I don't think you see that level of language in any other like Disney show. But yeah, like I remember watching the episode the other day, and he's like, yeah, I came here to kill Scrooge McDuck, and nobody like is gonna fucking stop me from doing this. I'll straight up murder him, like. And you're like, wow, this is kind of dark for a kid's show about three ducks that are orphaned. Like,
and again, I'm pretty sure he owns a blood emerald mine. Like, I'm just pretty sure that's a fact about Glinthart Glomgold. Like it's not on screen at any point, but I'm just pretty sure that's true about him.
I love people. Speaking of people who owned emerald mines.
Well, diamond, but I mean, it's the same thing. I don't think there's really that much difference. Anyway, like, end of the day, my sort of thesis statement about like why you would take away Scrooge McDuck's money is because I think at the end of the day, I think he's a slightly nicer Montgomery Burns. Like, I think, yeah, if Montgomery Burns had like a firm value on his family, you get Scrooge McDuck. And I think that's it. Any other points? I think that may be the end of the episode.
No, I think that basically brings me. I don't know. Are we supposed to be like rating this?
No. I think that's the coda for this. Scrooge McDuck, I find your works to be like entirely self-serving. Your value to the community is little to none. And I sent you to give the contents of your money bin to the government, who will probably not use it on anything useful, but at least we get to vote on it, I guess. Which, I guess is the entire like libertarian constructive critique of this show, is that like it involves us taxing Scrooge McDuck, and the government's also useless. But I don't know. Maybe that's a thing we gotta talk about eventually too. But another day. All right, that's the end of the show. You can follow us where you found this show. Like, comment, subscribe. You can find me at Lord Brokenshire on bluesky.social if you have it. I don't know. What are you up to, Cody?
Nothing.
Nothing just yet? Okay.
Nothing just yet.
Bye. See you later. For doing this, doing more stuff. Goodbye. Get out.